Thank you for joining me again for the Nicolene Bernard Talk Show. Today, my host is Sophia Dias, and today's episode is especially close to my heart because if you've watched me or followed me or read my book or know anything about me, you know how I feel about domestic abuse, having been a victim of domestic violence for over a decade. I hold this issue really close to my heart. I've talked about it. I've advocated for victims, and I'm on a mission to do whatever I can to help anyone who's experiencing domestic abuse or has experienced domestic abuse, do whatever I can to help them because it's an extremely traumatic experience that can have long-lasting effects. So today, I'm beyond excited to talk with my guest, Sophia Dias. And I'll read, as usual, I'll read a little bit of bio to introduce you to her before she joins on here. So Sophia Dias is a powerful and captivating speaker. Sophia Dias is not afraid to tell you the cold truth about domestic violence, what she went through, how she survived, and the light that guided her out of her trauma. After enduring a decade of horrific abuse and fighting for her life, Sophia walked away. She walked away alive. She found the courage to seek help and take a stand for her life's value. Since then, she's been helping others worldwide through speaking and being there hands-on to lift others. Now she's bringing her story directly to audiences to inspire others to take a stand and not be afraid to ask for help. That's one of the major things, not being afraid to ask for help. So right after these messages, Sophia will be joining us, and I cannot wait to hear her story. So get ready for what I know will be a very interesting and informative conversation with Miss Sophia Dias. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Please give a huge applause and welcome Miss Sophia Dias.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, no worries at all. I'm so glad that you were able to join because I got on earlier and then we got disconnected and I'm like, oh my God.
I am a little bit jet lagged, but I'm so excited to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. I'm so excited to have you because I can relate to your story so much. By the way, we're having a major storm. Like it looks like the end of the world outside.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So we have to anticipate being cut off.
Yeah, I hope not. I'm used to the weather here in Georgia. It gets crazy. It was sunny and it was gorgeous this morning, and then it just turned dark and we have lightning and hail and 60 miles an hour gusts. So
I'll be in Atlanta. I'll be in Atlanta in October.
Oh, that's awesome. We must connect. Are you going to be here for long?
I believe four months.
Awesome.
Yeah, off and on. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So we must make plans to connect because I'd really, really love to meet you.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm excited to get in because I was listening to your song as you joined Bulletproof. And I'm like, I love that scene with you walking through that grassy field. But I must ask you, where was this video recorded? Because it looks like the islands.
This video was recorded in a country called Jamaica at the Hope Garden. And believe it or not, it's just so nice and cool over there. And the coat that I was wearing, Nicolene, it's one of my creations, and the material is from Japan. It's paper thin. So, it's like wearing a transparent coat. And a few people asked me, was it cold where you were? And I said, no, but it felt just perfectly, elegant and beautiful.
It looks beautiful. Now, would you believe me if I tell you I was born in Jamaica?
I know that. I've been going to Jamaica ever since I was a young child, and through my teenage years, and then my adult life. And the relationships and the bonding that I have with the people of Jamaica is, I can only say, it's like we are family. So when I wrote, recorded and released my first album, I said, I've got to go to Tuff Gong and work with everybody that I've known, and people like Clive Hunt, Shane Brown, Kirk Benet, Hector Lewis, Dean Fraser. These are heavy hitters in the industry. They're not just respected in the Caribbean, but they are world famous figures, respected and most sought after around the globe. And I just felt that I was really, truly blessed and lucky that we got the dream team together.
Yes. It's a beautiful song. I love it. And I love the bulletproof, because there were times like I feel like after having been through so many things, I feel like I'm bulletproof, because it's been a long road. It's been a long walk, like my book says. So first thing I like to start off with, I already read your bio before you came on here, so viewers are familiar with you and your work. In your own words, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of dive into how you got started. We'll talk about, and at any time, we'll talk about whatever you're comfortable talking about. So you can share whatever, as much or as little as you want to. I want you to feel comfortable sharing your story with us. But how about we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So my name is Sophia Dias, and I'm a citizen of the world. I'm very fortunate to have been blessed, truly blessed, with the ability to have traveled the world a few times, meeting some of the finest and greatest people whom I will always cherish in my life, eating street food, volunteering at orphanages and homes for the destitute, women and children and animals across the world in my teenage life, from countries like South Africa to Mozambique to Zimbabwe, China, all over China. I chaired the Children's Cancer Foundation. I was the chairperson. All across India. I was in the Ukraine, Odessa, just before the Russian invasion, volunteering at a local orphanage and school called Tikva. In Hebrew, Tikva, Tikva, means hope. And that was enormous and a tremendous blessing for me to have been able to work and teach and educate girls and boys all under the age of 18. And I've had a tremendous life, and I've worked hard for everything that I have. I'm probably the only person I know who has mopped hundreds of kitchen floors, done a few thousand dishes. I'm an expert in washing dishes.
Yeah,
cooking food. I worked as a waitress most of my teenage life. And I remember I worked at an Indian restaurant in England once, and I love all kinds of food, but this Indian food was so delicious that my hair would smell of curry for a month. So, growing up was humble, and now in my life, I'm a citizen of Great Britain and America, and I'm proud to call America my home. I love the people, the spirit of the American people, where when there's a tragedy or there's a tragic or a challenging situation, the people come together, irrespective of nationality, color, creed, religion. And that is what I love about the spirit of the American people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's lovely. That's very impressive. What country were you born in?
I was born in a former Portuguese enclave called Goa. Goa was a former Portuguese enclave for 450 years. And I talk about it in great detail in my autobiography, which is on Amazon, Blondie Proof. I turned the title into French. Blondie Proof, when translated to English, is bulletproof.
That was one of my questions. I wanted to you to share that with the viewers what it meant. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So that's on Amazon,
Yes.
available on Amazon.
Yes.
Okay, and so in a minute I'll ask you, you'll let us know how viewers can reach you to find out more about you. What are your social media pages are, website, anything like that. But that's fantastic. So it sounds like you have a very, very, very interesting. You had an interesting life. You've done some wonderful things. What was childhood like for you? What was it like growing up?
Well, I was in a boarding school for about 10 years. My brother was in an all-boys boarding school. I was in an all-girls boarding school. My boarding school taught me two things. One was discipline, which I am really grateful now as an adult. Discipline, honesty, discipline are the only things in life that either makes or breaks a human being, because I believe that perception is reality. And boarding life also brought me close to my faith. So despite the tribulations and challenges, and I must say that I've been lucky to have a very, happy childhood, and, climbing trees and taking mangoes out of my neighbor's home in Spanish Town and Kingston and Ocho Rios and Montego Bay. But the real challenge and really brutally challenging situation that I encountered was only in the last, probably about 10 years ago, through a very difficult, tumultuous, I would say, a marriage, which is, way ended, as I say. The Bulletproof album, the lyrics are gut-wrenching. And I say Bulletproof, the album, does not define Sophia Dias. It's a closed chapter. But what is important is, again, I say perception is reality, is that the ability to share one's experience with others who might be going through 100 times worse challenge than I am. But I believe that sharing is empowering. And, people see you sitting on the cover of a fantastic album and a cookbook and whatever else it may be. They don't necessarily know your journey or how you've survived, how you have come through it. Nobody has walked in my shoes, and I haven't in theirs. And the only thing that brings us together as human beings, irrespective of whether you're a male or a female, is sharing. How did you do it? Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't have a family in the United States of America. I don't even have a distant cousin or a relative to say, hi there, can you have a cup of tea with me? There is no family in America, but the people who are not my family, Nicolene, colleagues, neighbors, just people that I met and people I've known and worked with, they just showed up at my doorstep and said, I'm here, what do you want me to do? I'll buy groceries for you. I'm going to feed your pets. I'm going to pay for your dry cleaning. That's the spirit of the American people, which I will always be grateful for.
I totally understand. And I agree with everything you said. I came here myself with two small children and I think $700 in my pocket. And it was because of help from people I didn't know, or even a few that I did know, that helped me through some of the most difficult times of my life. So I must say thanks to the people and the spirit of the people here in America, because moving here has made a huge difference in our lives. So I totally agree with you, and I understand. And you know what? You mentioned the last 10 years have been the ones that were most traumatic, because it sounds like you had a very interesting life and you were living your best life, and then something happened. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that all started?
Very little. I'm relating to a marriage, a former marriage. The person closest to me, despite the two of us as husband and wife, former husband and wife, worked together, helped build his very successful businesses. But when it came time for me to part ways, because it was a very dangerously toxic situation for me, where it was a matter of life or death. And when I did make the decision to part ways, instead of just being fair to me, or even a tiny bit, I was just thrown to the wolves. Everything that I had earned was taken from me. I woke up with $20.40 in my bank account. And the courtroom, which I've actually written a song, it's called Room 3010, where I was before a female judge for 4 years as a petitioner to protect me from the abuse of a tyrannically wealthy, narcissistic, very dangerous human being. The judge basically saw where the money was coming from, and she decided that I had no rights in her room, in a family courtroom. She sided 100% with my former spouse. And during the heart of COVID, in a brutal winter, with no money, no savings account, no investment account, no retirement account, she ordered me in the presence of my attorneys that I should move from my marital home and move into a 1-bedroom hotel in the heart of a global pandemic. And I had 4 pets then, 3 adopted cats who were with me for 15 years, and 1 Bernese mountain dog. He was 165 pounds. There was nobody in Chicago or in the United States of America who wanted to rent me a 1-bedroom hotel room. And Nicolene, the irony of the situation, which I believe that the entire judicial system in the world should know what happened in the democratic country of America, is that there were no hotels open. The whole world was in a lockdown. Where was I going to move? There was nowhere to go. And then it got even more debaucherous and really dangerous for me, where the judge gave her best and close and personal friend, who was a realtor, the job to sell my only home that I had. I was treated worse than a stray animal. I was the petitioner before this judge, and she took great pleasure in insulting me, berating me, gave no credence or credibility to the fact that I had worked for over 15 or 16 years of the marriage, just worked nonstop. And it was a very unfair situation. And she also informed my attorneys right in front of me that she, the judge presiding at 3010, and these are her words, not mine. Her words were, she will decide who lives and with whom, who lives where and how. The power of being a judge. This is what another attorney said, that the power of being a judge had gone to her head, and she almost felt like God. She could dictate whose life she's going to ruin and whose life she's going to enrich.
Yes, unfortunately, judges are given that power, and that justice scale is never balanced. How were you able to move on from that?
I have spoken, I've written in detail, in very great detail in the book. There's a chapter that speaks only about room 3010 and what happened, and how my attorney that resigned went into a deep depression because he was shocked. And I only found out much years later. And that was a huge challenge in itself. People and friends from all over the world stood up, some flew in and took great care of me. That is now in the past. And
Yes.
I'm in a really beautiful, happy state of my mind. But I must say that praying and reading the Bible and praying Psalm 23, which I wrote a song, Psalm 23 in French, for Nazanin Ratcliffe, staying true to my faith, doing what I loved doing is running, 4 kilometers a day, going to the gym twice, spending a lot of time with my dog, Mr. Santos, who was my savior, essentially. And our love is tremendous. And in my second album, Bulletproof 2, which I just finished writing, the 7 tracks, my team and I've dedicated a song called Unconditional Love for Mr. Santos, because he passed after a good 8.5 years. He passed just in May, and he helped me write Bulletproof, the first album. He helped me write the autobiography. And I'm going to be in Kingston in September to celebrate my birthday in the second week with my team. And I'm going to be working.
That sounds exciting.
Well, you should come and
That
meet
sounds
me.
very exciting. I have no doubt you're going to have a fantastic time celebrating your birthday there. We have a saying in Jamaica. I just thought of that when you were talking about friends coming to help you. It says, good friend is better than pocket money. And it means it's better than having money in your pocket. And I've found that to be so true. Having a good friend or having friends or someone in your corner to support you and in whatever way you need, it's sometimes better than having cash. There were many times when my friends were my saving grace and have done things for me that money could not have. So I can't stress how important it is to have good people in your corner, especially in times like those. I know abuse, the physical is just horrendous, but when you have to deal with the financial and the emotional, and there's so much that goes into that. I've been there, we've been there, so we know what that is like. I know that you mentioned praying and your faith. Are you Christian? What's your faith?
Well, I was born
Religion.
a staunch Catholic, but then as I grew up, very soon I knew that I was a Christian. I no longer wanted to be a Catholic for reasons that we all know of, what the abuse that transpired with the young children. And being a Christian, it's everything that Jesus Christ stood for. And it's
Right.
liberating.
So your faith, and I know you talk about having your friends and having Mr. Santos for support. We also had a dog. Her name was Stush. We don't have her anymore, but I know what it's like. When I was sad, she would come and put her head on my lap, and that would just make me like she would absorb whatever pain I had. So I know what it's like to have an animal that you love dearly. So you had some support, you had your faith to fall back on. And you said that you do your workout, your exercises. What other tools or resources did you have to help you to get past or to deal with that trauma, to get to where you are now, where you're doing beautifully, I can see?
I asked all of my friends and anybody that I met to give me work, to give me a job. I started making wedding dresses from my home, content writing, design, anything. I would work day and night and day, all day, and find time to go to the gym. At that time, I was a member of the East Bank Club, and I could, which is one of the finest health clubs in the world that I've ever been to. I've been going to the gym since I was essentially a teenager, and I could no longer afford to pay the fees of the East Bank Club. So a few friends got together and they paid for my monthly gym membership fee at the East Bank Club. And that was hugely beneficial for me because, I need the gym in the morning and in the evening. So it's just, it's as important as breathing for me. because that is how I grew up. If I was bored, the nuns would send us to the gym.
Work it out.
Fantastic, to keep the mind and the body and spirit together. That was hugely important. And I am incredibly blessed that in less than a month, I'll be laying down the melody for Bulletproof 2.
Oh, that sounds exciting. I can't wait to hear. I'm sure that music has helped you to express some of those feelings and emotions that you had. I know that if you don't express these emotions and they stay bottled up, it will be like an explosion when it does release. So I'm glad that you had your music to help you through it. One thing I like to ask for, persons who have been, because I know for myself, when I was in this abusive relationship, I always knew that it was not, I shouldn't stay. I knew it wasn't good for me. I knew the right thing to do was to leave, but it took so much. And what prompted me to go was I got pregnant with my second child. And just the thought of being pregnant, I felt trapped. I'm like, I had a plan in place to leave with one child. So now with two, I'm like, if I don't leave now, I'll be stuck here forever. And I didn't want my children to experience what I had experienced. And that was the thing that pushed me to overcome the fear and make that leap to leave. Do you know what that defining moment was for you when you decided that this relationship needed to end and you needed to leave and not be anymore?
Well, the defining moment really was through another human being. It was in my former marital home in Chicago, and the police were called, and Mr. Santos had just saved my life. I wouldn't have been here had it not been for him. Mr. Santos is my dog, who's now up in heaven watching over me. The policeman, the sergeant, I believe, who was there, he had been to the home before. And as he was leaving, it was around 2:00 in the morning. And right before he left, my girlfriend from New York had rang because she was aware of what was happening. And he looked at me and he said, "Miss Diaz, today we were in the nick of time. We were here to help you and you survived. Perhaps the next time we might get delayed. Have you thought about it?" That is where I just stood and I froze. And Mr. Santos was by my feet and the policemen were hugging him and taking photos with him. And, he just loves people. And I said, that was the defining moment for me, that irrelevant, even if I had $1 in my pocket, because he had essentially taken everything from me. I had no credit card. There was no way I could buy groceries, not even food for my cats and my dog, without the help of my friends. And when he left, I knew that was God talking to me. And I kept in touch with all of those policemen who had been to my home, and they had formed a friendship with Mr. Santos. So when they would pass by my home, they would ring and say, "Is Mr. Santos home? We have a cupcake for him, or a bone or a biscuit or something." And that kept reaffirming that really was a message from the universe, that I had to run away as fast as I can, with or without anything, but with my 4 pets. I had 3 cats that had lived with me. Adopted them from Paws and Anti-Cruelty Society. They lived with me in China for a few years, and they just mattered the world to me.
I understand. Yes, there's always that defining moment, and it's different for everyone, but there's that moment when you know that this is it and I have to leave no matter what. One of the questions I would get a lot, surprisingly a lot, was, why did I stay? Why did you stay?
I was terrified. I was petrified. I wasn't just up against one tyrant. I was up against several of his cronies, his colleagues who knew what was happening. His very young second wife, who was a from China. She worked for a company, so she was probably 22 years old and he was 57 or 58. And all that she saw me and my former spouse was, we were cash machines for her. So she was relentlessly, pursuing me. Like, they just wanted me dead. They wanted me off of the face of this earth.
You were terrified. You were afraid of leaving.
They monitored all my movements. My phone, the BMW that I drove, had a tracking device. The security camera in my home was hacked into, and they knew all of my movements. So it wasn't just two people, it was a group that he had convinced to say that instead of paying Sophia, alimony or attorney's fees, it's best that she's eliminated. And I detail this, I detail it, I have diagrams in detail so that the people of the world who read know what really happened. So, it might help others. It might uplift somebody who's maybe in 100 times worse situation than
or
me.
even the same, because yeah, no one understands, like, your trauma is your trauma, and there's no way to say that someone's had it worse or not as bad as you, because this is your experience, and it's just terrible. So I'm very happy that you're open to sharing, because I know one of the biggest problems for me was I felt ashamed because I somehow felt like I was responsible for some of the things that had happened to me. And it took me a while to get to the point where I was speaking positively to myself and saying and realizing or admitting that this was not my fault. You cannot take on the responsibility of what someone else has done for you. The healing process was very difficult for me, and it took a really long time. And I feel like by sharing my story, if it can help anyone in any way to speed up their release from their situation or getting some enlightenment or healing from their thing, then I applaud anyone who's willing to share. And I will tell anyone, I feel no more shame. But that was one thing that held me back for quite a while. So I do applaud you for coming and speaking up about it, because a lot of times the shame is what keeps a lot of people quiet. And you said something earlier, and in the notes I read about you, is not being afraid to ask for help. That was a big thing for me. I didn't want to disappoint my family, my friends. I felt like I should have known better, and I was afraid to ask for help. And then when I finally opened up and did, there were so many people who were willing and able and happy to help me. So if anything, that one thing that you said, I think is a huge and very important message for anyone who's experiencing anything similar to what you've been through. It's just silence does not help anyone. If anything, it just prolongs the issue. But you have to open your mouth and speak and ask for help, because help is out there. You just have to open up and ask for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, as a human being who had never been in a position like this, for me, the defining moment to ask for help was, woke up one day and I had to make a decision. Do I buy toothpaste or Listerine for myself? Then there was a decision. I mean, Mr. Santos was a big boy. He's a big boy, 165 pounds. He was used to a standard of living, better food from crisis, vitamins for his joints and hip and liver and everything else. We all know that dogs and cats and basically animals who've been given good care, they live longer, they live healthier. And then I just couldn't do it. And that was a defining moment for me when I said the magic words, "Hi there, I need help. I haven't got money to buy food for my pets." And some of the people who knew my situation helped. Some of them who didn't know, they said, "Oh my God, she lives in this beautiful home in Bucktown in Chicago. How come she hasn't got any money to buy food?" So there was a lot of explaining to do, and the autobiography had not come out by then, but there were friends in England, former colleagues that I'd kept in touch with, that I'd known. They encouraged me to write of everything that transpired in 3010, petitions, affidavits, day-to-day happenings. Another person that really encouraged me to write was Shane Brown, the Grammy Award-winning music engineer from Kingston, Jamaica. Shane was my mixing engineer for Psalm 23 and Bulletproof. He was a constant source of strength, courage. Because each time he checked up on me and we talked, he would say, Sophia, write everything. We're going to make an album and we're going to record, release, and I'll be here with you. You know, that was very incredibly special. And we are in touch with each other. And I believe Shane Brown is going to be a big part of Bulletproof too.
Yes, that's beautiful. It's great to have an outlet, some way to express. I feel like some of the best albums that were ever made is a story of heartbreak or trauma or disappointment. That release is a big deal. And you said something else that's really important, for an important message for folks, is not to ever judge. Sometimes the folks who are the most put together, seem organized, appear to be living the best lives, are going through some extremely difficult times. And this is a good lesson to learn, not to, like we say, judge a book by its cover. Just don't look at someone and just assume that everything is perfect for them, because you just never know what someone's going through. You can never tell. Because we're masters, we're masters of covering up things and wearing our masks. And I like to talk about my Naked Challenge program. Until you take it all off and really get to the core and get naked, it's difficult to heal from anything. So acknowledgement and opening and sharing is really the best place to start.
Absolutely.
I admire you. It's been a few years, but you seem to have come a very long way. Do you have anything that you do? I know that you talk about your music and it sounds like you're always working, so you always have things to keep you busy and to keep you active. Do you find that you ever think back on those times in your life? And I like to call them ambush thoughts. Do you feel like anything that's happened in your life what's the effect that experience has had on your life? Do you feel like it was a positive effect? Has it made you a better, stronger person? How do you feel about that experience?
I would say that there's only been one person who's really betrayed me on every fundamental level, who just left me to die. And that was a former spouse. That chapter and that window is shut. I don't even think about it. But moving forward, it has taught me to be a stronger person. And as I said before, it has given me the courage to say, when need be, hello there, I need help. Can you please help me? And I would encourage people not to be ashamed of asking for help. Moving forward, there's going to be a Bulletproof movie, which will be happening, which I cannot talk much about. But I would like to give a shout out to Monty. Monty, I know you're in somewhere in Europe. Monty is my producer and co-writer for the Bulletproof 2 album. I'll be seeing him in Kingston, Jamaica. I love that man. I respect him, a tremendously talented musician on every level. Roland McDermott, I'll be with you in Kingston next month. Ronelle Golden is my co-writer for the Bulletproof autobiography and a part of our Bulletproof 2 album, which we are working out of from Tough Gong, Big Yard, and Circle Studios in Miami. Here we come, 2024. Thank you.
Listen, oh, you are so welcome. You are such an inspiration. And I say this to all my guests, because this is my purpose. This is a reason for having these talk shows, because I want to share with the world that out of something that I know must have been just extremely horrific for you, that experience that you had, your strength and your courage is an inspiration, I'm sure, to anyone who know you or anyone who's watching, because you're not being defined by what happened to you. You have turned that experience into something positive. You've written a book.
Absolutely.
You've written your music. You're speaking out and sharing your experience. You have a message to encourage those who are experiencing the same thing. You didn't just lay there and roll over and die and be a victim. You've risen up like a phoenix, and you are spreading your joy and your story and your inspiration and your music. You're just sharing and enlightening others. And that is something that I encourage so much, and something that I admire so much, because I know it's not easy to do that. After having an experience like that, the easiest thing is just to sit and not do anything. It takes tremendous strength and courage to do what you've done.
Absolutely.
And I do admire you.
Oh, absolutely. And also
Admire.
that 10, 15 years, Nicolene, I wanted to share that I served God's people. I served my God by serving his people. I would cook homemade gourmet meals, money and food provided by friends. And I would feed the residents of Tent City on Roosevelt and Canal Street in the south side of Chicago. And as I was, working on my album Bulletproof at Tuffgong, I volunteered at the Women's Center in Kingston and volunteered there with the very young mothers, teenagers giving birth to children, and with a team of people from the US, the UK, and my colleagues in Jamaica. We are hosting a gala charity dinner for the Women's Center in February. I'll be in Jamaica, in Kingston, and we're going to be invitations. I would love for you to come.
I would love to come. So please keep me posted, keep me included. I'd love to be a part of that. I live for that kind of thing. You are such an inspiration, and you are living testimony that no matter what, we just had a storm, no matter what the storm looks like, God takes care of his people.
Absolutely.
So you've done great work. And if anyone's out there that's struggling right now, I hope that they'll listen to your story and find some hope. Your light will be like a beacon to them to encourage them to keep going. I'm so happy that we didn't allow the storm to stop us from talking today. And I guess God was just testing us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh.
And I will be sending you an invitation for the charity gala dinner. For the profits of everything goes to the young teenage mothers and children for the Women's Center. People can build the Women's Center. It's in the heart of Kingston, Jamaica.
Fantastic. Please share all that information with me. I will share it with my teams and my group. And please, I'd love to meet with you. Let's have lunch when you get into Atlanta and talk some more. It was such a pleasure to talk with you today. Thanks. I know you were jet lagged, but thank you for taking the time, and you keep shining. I appreciate you.
I'm blessed. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Wow. That was amazing. I really enjoyed that conversation. I can relate so much to that conversation. It doesn't matter what the details of the relationship was. I believe that Sophia is, just like I said, a beacon of hope for other women who are experiencing something similar or experiencing any type of trauma. She had some very powerful messages. Open up your mouth and ask for help, because silence will only prolong the pain. Silence will only prolong the suffering. You have to ask for help. Another great message from that conversation was not to judge anyone by their parents. You never know what someone's going through. I'm sure that when I was going through my situation, not many people knew what I was experiencing. There were some folks who thought I had the perfect life. I was traveling all the time. I had my own vehicle. I didn't work for anyone. I didn't swipe a card. I didn't have to clock in. It appeared that I had everything I needed. No one knew what was happening behind closed doors. So never judge. And good friend, like we say, is better than pocket money. So nourish those friendships. Pay attention. It's important to have good people in your camp. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I will be sharing Sophia's details If you can, please contribute to the charity events, and you can check out our video description for how you can contact Sophia, learn more about the events that she's having, the program she's in, to learn about her Bulletproof album. It's quite interesting, that video that she shot in Jamaica at Hope Gardens. I like the words of the song. I like the confidence in the song. And again, I do admire her courage. So until next time, stay safe, tell everyone about us, and remember, speak with love always.